There you go. Okay,
Mhm.
so these are all questions that you've gotten from the people on your Patreon, a bunch of nice folks from all over the world, which is super cool to see.
Yeah,
And so far, they've all been incredibly gracious and nice on the channel. So the
yeah.
first question is from Chloe Haynes.
Oh,
Hi, Chloe. And Chloe says, "What is this? Is a big question. What is the best piece of advice that you have been given?"
man.
That's a
I
hard
think
one.
the first thing that pops in my head, and I like to go with that, is slow down. There's plenty of time. Some people need obviously get up, but I'm not wired that way. Slow down. And there's another piece that there's a few of these. So Chloe, I'll stack a little bit. Um, Another one that I got was when I became a parent, but I think and I know it applies to everything. In some things, especially parenting, the days are long, but the years are short. They're so short. Um, and I think the most powerful thing I've done, and I've really taken this on in the last 18 months or 12 months really, is be kind to yourself. Because it's that thing on an airplane, if you don't put your own air on first, you're gonna pass out. You're no good to anyone. And I think there's a lot of people running at really fast revs or working really hard or walking around angry or walking around uncomfortable because they don't even realize how much they're being unkind to themselves and judging themselves and telling themselves they fell short. It's been our culture for a long time, but it produces a very discontented world.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's very easy to just kind of close in on yourself and not take care of yourself, especially when you have so much to do all the time. But yeah, slow down is great advice. Very good. Well,
Yeah,
check this real quick.
yeah. I'll roll into another one from horse training. There was a phrase by the guy who designed the training system I used with my Mustangs, and it was, "Take the time it takes, so it takes less time." That was a tough one for me to wrap my head around because I'm like, "Blah, blah, blah." No, slow down, because you miss those beautiful details in the moment.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
That's really true. Yeah, I'll periodically, this is just how I am. I'll tell like tiny little anecdotes as we talk because it's just
Do it.
I'm
I
I'm
love
a
it.
storyteller. But
I love it.
you talk about these tiny moments, and just yesterday, my son is 5. We had this big family event last night. Like we hadn't seen family in a year, and they're getting ready to leave, and he's upset. And so we just went for like a 10-minute walk on a dock, and like we saw some turtles, and like the sun was setting, and I was like, this is just so, it's quiet, and it's so special, and it's something I'll remember forever, and it's something that's just so mundane, but it's taking the time to do those mundane things that can be very important.
You just opened up a whole world there with that tiny moment. And that is, we've been led by the nose for so long by a very commercialized culture that tells us that fulfillment is out there. It's in that store, it's in that thing, it's in this, and it's in that. And I like to read things by people much older than me about what actually matters when you're really about to exit the building. And it's never the stuff, it's always those little moments. And I look at that in my life, and that's really what we're after, is that feeling. It's exactly what you had right there. That is it. Like, remember, have you seen Soul? Have you seen Disney's
I
movie
haven't seen
Soul?
it yet. No, I haven't seen it
Oh my God. Okay. I'll cry a lot in these things, but because
yet.
I am an iron marshmallow. I will cry at the drop of a hat, but don't mess with me. So there's this moment, and all I'm gonna tell you is, those there's seed pods from a tree, and they look like two little wings, and they've got the little seeds in the middle, and they just look
Yeah,
like little, I can't make the thing, little wing things with little seed here and here.
almost like a kidney. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a moment where one of the characters is looking at that in their hand and looking at the sky, and it's everything.
Aw,
See that movie. See it with your
yeah.
kid. Your kid can totally handle it. It opens up conversations about life and death. But I mean, I think if we were more connected to death, we'd live better lives. And I don't say that capriciously. I know there are people out there who are deeply connected to death. Death and I are really good friends. I've been really close to a lot of it, but it just increases I have found it increased my enjoyment of life when I really connect to like, yeah, this ain't a simulation.
Right.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start to realize that all the material stuff isn't as important, right?
Yeah.
And it was like I mentioned this to you on the phone briefly yesterday. It was just like, I've had jobs like in AAA, rush, 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 like,
Yeah.
but then like I realized as I got a little bit older, it's like I'd rather have more free time to be with my kid and spend time with him and relax a little bit than worry about other people's financial success and how well
Yeah.
they're, so
Yeah.
anyway, we could talk all day about this one
I
topic. We
know.
have a lot of questions. So
Yes.
the next question is from Ashley Rule, who says, being a public figure on social media, how do you balance presenting yourself as a representative for ideals and being a normal person with ups and downs? Do you ever feel pressure to present yourself unnaturally, and how do you deal with that?
No,
So,
I won't do it.
yeah.
I won't do it. I I feel like authenticity is it's one of my highest values. My highest value is alignment, and that comes out of my own personal spiritual um, knowledge, beliefs, understanding, compass. Really, I think that's a big problem in our world today. Is everybody presenting the highlight reel from their life and making it look like it's their whole life? I mean, that's why sometimes in these rooms you're going to see me here in my pajamas and I'm a wreck. You're going to see me, you know, I've put out a couple videos. Right now it's May of 2021, the end of May of 2021. I put out a couple videos in the last couple of months where I was crying my eyes out. It was ugly crying because it was an authentic response to something. My commitment is to being an authentic person, and an important part of that actually is my boundaries. There is some stuff I won't that isn't public. Like that's my private life. I'll process it the way I need to, and I'll share the pieces that I'm moved to share. I live my life primarily from my gut, from my intuition, because I lived a significant piece of my life ignoring that intuition. And that always gets followed up by a 2x4 from the universe going, really?
Hmm.
Really?
Hmm.
So,
True.
yeah. Thanks,
That's
Ashley.
Yeah, that was a great question. That was a really great
Yeah.
question. And it's hard. I mean, you are in a position where a lot of people look up to you because of the roles that you've played. So it's like it's challenging. You have to kind of hold yourself to a higher moral standard than the average human being because you have so many eyes on you. So
Yeah, I guess there is one aspect of that. Like sometimes I want to tweet at somebody, really? That's so
no, yeah.
stupid, but I won't do it. Like
Mhm.
that's not my commitment. I've been aware, my goodness, since I mean for the last 20 plus years, 20, 30 years almost, that what I put out in the world, the butterfly effect is real. I've lived it. I know it. So if I throw a rock at someone, that rock actually had an impact. I mean, I've been fortunate because this level of conscientiousness has been with me since I can remember, since I was tiny. My mom was a very, very abusive person. And I can remember being at the effect of that and still going and still knowing and understanding, not always in the moment, but in a couple key moments where I could have really nailed back and I chose not to, even while I'm getting hammered, because I was like, this is a human in pain.
Yeah.
And I don't use that kill move in my actual life. I save it for games
There you go.
and
Great
cartoons.
quote.
Mhm, mhm.
Very good. So this one is a general question, but it's still a good one. It's from Scout. It says, out of all the projects, this is so hard to answer, but I'm going to throw it to you anyway. Out of all the projects you've ever done, whether it be video games, TV, or business, what is the project you are most proud of?
Oh my life.
Ooh.
My life is the project I'm most proud of. That I'm a good parent, that I'm a sane person, that lately it was that I do my best every day. And lately, the thing I'm most proud of is that I'm good to myself. I'm no longer doing my best every day by beating the crap out of myself to be better. I'm doing the best every day out of a genuine appetite for life. I'm proudest of that. Yeah.
Was there anything that was the catalyst for that change in your life that made you
Yes.
stop beating yourself up, or
My health, my
oh
health.
yeah?
My body started kicking my butt because, words have power. Words have enormous power. And I knew that intellectually. Well, you know what it was? I've done a lot, as I've mentioned earlier, alluded to, I had a rough, rough road early in life. And I've spent many years, working with various therapists. Like I would go in and work with somebody because I knew I needed to. I just felt awful. And then I'd get to a space where I felt like I'd put in time with that person and I got what they had to teach me. And then I kind of take a break. And then a few years later, another issue would come up and I'd be like, okay, back to school. Okay, let's go. And I go back in and oh gosh, Ash, I've lost track of the question. Give me the question again.
Oh, it was what was the catalyst for you making that
Oh yeah.
change in your life? Yeah.
So I've done a lot of work on myself, right? And I have a decent amount of intelligence and I have a decent amount of empathy and understanding. And I have a tremendous amount of success under my belt. And I still felt terrible. And I thought, okay, I don't actually have any actual problems. The only actual problem I have is here. It's in my thinking. And I was so lucky. I started listening to this podcast, the Jim Fortin podcast, which I highly recommend. And his podcast was extraordinary. So I took the next step to do his sort of free Facebook online training because I believe in coaching. I think if you if you have a chance to like cut in the line of life and leapfrog based on someone else's expertise, why would you not? Except that it tends to be expensive, which is why I've started this room here so we can have these kinds of conversations and open up these topics at a super easily accessible financial level. So I enrolled in his program and it really held a difficult, painful, and annoying mirror up to myself and shone a glaring light on how I had a double standard, which is I would bend over backwards for the rest of the world and I would beat myself to shreds in the process. And that's a double standard. And I realized the cost of it. And even more painful, I realized I was modeling that for my son. And I don't want that future for him.
Yeah, that's the hard thing is they do tend to absorb all of our good traits and our bad traits. So you have to be hyper aware of what doors you slam and
Yeah.
and how you kind of behave in front of the little
They're
guys.
not going to do what you say. They're going to do what you do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true. That's
Yeah.
very true. So next question is from, let's see, let's ask this one. This is from Kama Shaw.
Mm.
This is a good one. It says, "Hello, Jennifer. What made you create this place where you want to talk about life and taking back our lives, etc.? What made you want to start all this?" That's a great question.
That's a great question. Thank you. I don't know if it's Kama or Kama. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're right. It's probably comma.
I don't know, but thank you. Um, it's a beautiful question. And it is one that will probably make me cry. I have wanted to save the world since I was 4. And that's obviously a very unrealistic. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to put that judgment on it. For me, what that translates to is I'm called to serve, to share my heart. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I kept not making space for it. So I found a place. And if you put a few bucks on it, I'm going to have to show up, and it's just a few bucks for you. And if you're doing that, I got to show up because it's going to happen. Right. So I created that level of accountability for myself. And I have been, like I said, I've spent a bloody fortune healing myself, and I needed to, because I honest to God don't think I'd be here if I hadn't. I may or may not be on the planet still. Although I know I think I would, because my life force is pretty formidable. I fought through some really gnarly stuff. And that healing was expensive. And I've done extraordinary coaching programs like the one I just talked about. They're expensive. And it bothers me that the incredible knowledge that I've gained from these wonderful mentors isn't available to more people because of the financial barrier. I am not a coach, not a therapist, but I am here to open up the conversations, because I think there are people in the world and in this community who want to have these conversations, but they can't afford it, or they're just not used to it. It's sort of weird where they come from. They don't have permission, or they don't even know how to start. So as we go along, I mean, right now we're using Patreon as a platform, and that may continue. Their billing procedures are making me I'm feeling a great deal of discomfort around the way they bill. Like if you join on the 25th, you're still getting charged on the first. Like that's driving me crazy, but I can't change their system. It is what
Mhm,
it is. Um, so at some point I may build my own platform
mhm,
and we'll see. But one of the things I want to create, regardless of where we do that, and this is a big thank you to you, Ash, and to Gwen, our other admin who's so helpful, is a page of resources. So you guys can access, I'm going to share on there like where I went for coaching, the books that helped me, the concepts that I found, here's a link to this place, here's a link to this podcast. I'll share those things with you. So I started it as that. And the fun way I like to explain it is I heard this. I can never remember these metaphors or analogies. I get them confused. This
mhm,
thingy
mhm.
about like the monks are at the top of the mountain. They're all evolved and super enlightened and extraordinary. And then there's people who live at the bottom of the mountain and they run from the top of the mountain where they hang out with the monk out into the valley to tell all the masses about what's possible in terms of, your life and your dreams and feeling better. And I see those as my coaches and my mentors. And I see myself as just the person running around the valley with flyers going, did you know there's a conversation? It's so fun. So that's why I started it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think you're the type of person that, like you even said it during this conversation, you like helping people, and this is such a fun opportunity to reach out and have fun and help people at the same time,
Mhm.
and entertain them too. That's
Yeah.
it's such a fantastic opportunity for fans of yours and for people that want to be part of an inclusive community
Yeah.
that's just kind of wants to uplift one another. I think it's such a fun space already. So
That is the main goal. I'm so glad you said that because that is very much the main goal is to create, a haven. That's why I
yeah,
call it the
there you go.
haven, a place where we can all breathe, come together, link arms, and make a community and hold space for each other.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great. The next question is from Jessica Grace. Jessica asks, "What is the best advice you could give to your 30-year-old self?" And there were a bunch of people in the Discord who were saying, "I'm about to turn 30. This is the one I want to hear."
Okay. Um, you ready? All of you
I'm-
listen. You're fine. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Take the pressure off. Enjoy your life. Look in the mirror because you're cursing yourself for how you look or what you weigh or what you haven't done. And I look back at my pictures of myself back then and I go, what was I thinking? I looked great. I was doing great. Like just stop with the beating yourself up if you're doing that. Take risks. Be willing to look like an idiot to claim your own life because the truth is anyone who would judge you for that is not your people. Don't waste time. Don't waste time with not your people. You are the only custodian. Okay, I'm going to say this clumsily, but you are the sole custodian of that soul that shines through you right now. You were given the job of bringing that forth. Own it. Find a way to love it. Like start by looking in the mirror going, hey, just hang out with yourself in the mirror for a minute until you can go, love you. You're pretty cool. You're really
yeah,
cool.
it's important.
Because this came to me a while back, and this is what I want to say too. Please don't be anyone else. Please don't be anyone else. You're the only one of you. Be that.
It's great advice.
Mm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right around that age, you have this preconceived notion of what you're supposed to
Yeah.
what you're supposed to have accomplished by the time you're 30 years old. So, career, family, whatever it may be. And a lot of people reach the age of 30 and go, "Oh my gosh, I haven't done X, Y, and Z." And it can be really depressing and debilitating.
Yeah.
But I think that's wonderful advice. I mean, like all of us, career changes and all those things, like you said, just the most important thing is having respect for yourself and doing the best that you can.
It is. And I want to add to that. A lot of that thinking comes out of that 1950s paradigm. It all looks a certain way. You have these checklists by the time you get here, and we don't live there. We live in 2021 and beyond, where we have taken all those old paradigms and crumpled them up like useless pieces of paper and thrown them away. It is the Wild West in a good way. Like you get to invent what your life looks like, you get to drive that ship. So do it.
That's awesome. That's great. Bitraptor actually had a follow-up question, and Bitraptor asks, bouncing off that, everyone has their ideas about happiness and what happiness can be. How has your idea about happiness changed as you've grown older with more life experiences? So, how has happiness changed for you?
I think the single most important point of change in my relationship with happiness is the swap from external validation to internal validation. And what I mean by that is my happiness, like many people's, would often go up and down with how I thought I was being perceived or if I was doing well. And happiness now, I'm going to say contentment because happiness is a high bar. And I think a constant state of happiness is not realistic. I think contrast, as hard as it is important because we're here to learn and grow, right?
Hmm.
But when I shifted to how do I feel about this? Am I proud of this? Like, does it matter? I'm a person who needs to be alone to recharge, who loves my home and loves to be in my home, and I fixed up this entire house when I moved into it, at the launch of the pandemic. And it was a lot, but I did it on my own. I'm the sole decision maker in my house around that stuff. And it was really an exercise in, like, if you look at decorating your apartment or something like that, I used to go, is that okay? I don't do that now. I sit with myself and I say, how does that feel? It feels good. Good. All right. It's nobody else's business. It's mine.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Very good. Next question is from Vic Athena says, "What is the project that's challenged you the most? Did it help you grow, or has it been something you decided you wouldn't do again?"
If we're talking work project, I'm gonna say being stunt Dory is really, really hard. There's two of them: being stunt Dory and then Electo from God of War. Stunt Dory's hard because, you know, I do Dory whenever Ellen doesn't do it, which is anything. She just does the films, and I do everything else. And to properly voice match a living human being and all the different nuances of their soul and their spirit and their performance and their vocal print and all, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling for
That's
me.
insane. That's I
It's
can't
insane.
fathom. I
Yeah.
can't fathom how you even do
Yeah,
that.
it feels like a huge responsibility, and it's probably me putting too much pressure on myself, but
Right.
if Disney's happy, I should be happy. But, and then Electo was really difficult because she trades on her sexuality and she manipulates quite intentionally, regardless of how much it hurts other people. So that was the that was one where I had to go, okay. I mean, I can play bad people all day long, but ones who trade on their sexuality, I just am like, ah, when is this over?
That's hard. It's hard
It's
when someone's
icky.
like morally the opposite of you, you know? It's
Yeah, but that's, I
very
mean, we're actors, it's what we do. I was actually quite helped by the fact that it was performance capture, and I could see her image being generated instantly over there. So I'm wearing the really horrible black pajama outfit with the dots all over it and the God knows what color crotch and armpits, because they put the bright colors in those that distinguish one uniform from another.
yeah.
Somebody's idea of a sick joke. Um, but I could see her and her form was so extraordinary. And every time I'd move, she'd move. And that really helped because we don't have the benefits of wardrobe and stuff when we're doing and sets when we're acting in performance capture, especially in voice acting. So that was that was hard, and personally speaking, for me it's stepping into my power and setting boundaries at a new level, at a level that's required by all the things I'm doing now, and having to confront my previous definition of that, which was not being nice.
Mhm.
I had being nice defined as having no boundaries and doing whatever someone asked, which that is not a sustainable strategy, just heads up.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's hard. Yeah, and that's one of the things about, what you do that's so fantastic is like it requires you to have such a vivid imagination and having interviewed so many voice actors over the years, just the fact that you guys go into that booth alone 99% of the time and have to, create the way that you do is so fantastic. So
Thank you.
very cool.
It's
The next question is from Gray Jedi Engineer, And it says, "What was it like to take a leading role in the Performance Matters VA strike a few years back?"
Man, it
That
was
was a wild time,
infuriating.
huh?
Yeah, it was infuriating, it was difficult, it was confronting. I had to really confront my own limitations in terms of my frustration tolerance and my ability to hold my tongue. This is when Keith Farley, he's an extraordinary actor, a wonderful director, and an extraordinary human being. He was the lead of our committee, and he never got mad. Not
Wow.
once. Not once. Well, if he did, me, I'll get up there and just like, like my head will
Yeah.
go off, or I'll have to leave the room and walk because I don't want to be that presence. I don't want to stink up the space with my rage. Um, so that was the hardest thing, was holding my tongue and taking the long view, and also just the intensity of the endurance of an 11-month strike. I reached out to the non-union community because there was a culture in previous years where that sort of pitted non-union actors against union actors. And I thought that's not helping anyone. We're all actors. We're
Mhm.
all in this together. And I've worked non-union. I started my career in a non-union market and a right to work state. So I knew that whole world a bit. So I opened up my home, which I'm a very private person, and I opened up my home 3 times to the non-union community and brought them all in so we could have conversations about how do we start standardizing everybody's rate, whether you're union or non-union. Let's just start helping buyers get used to paying everybody kind of the same way, you know?
Wow.
So
Did it end up in a place that was amicable toward everyone? Do you feel like it ended up in a good spot?
we did. I think
Yeah.
we had a really strong cultural shift in that process. Everybody pitched in. Aaron Fitzgerald. I mean, there were so many wonderful people
Mhm.
really taking stands in that process. And I think we certainly nipped the backstabbing in the bud,
That's
which was
great.
so important because I see that is the strategy of so many corporate moves like that, is divide and conquer. They pit us against each other and we're in the pit fighting while they're stealing us blind up here and we didn't notice because we were too busy fighting in the pit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's crazy. I'm glad it worked out. I remember that time as a games journalist being like, wow, there's just going to be a lot of games that are going to be using non-union for a while, or just won't release when they were supposed to release because of this big long strike. But I think it ended up in a good place too. So
Yeah, and we had to
yeah.
take a stand. We have to. It's part of the whole thing was part of the larger corporate war on the middle class. I saw a statistic the other day. I don't remember if it was the 1920s or the 1940s. At that time, I think minimum wage was 25 cents and you had to work 72 hours to pay your rent.
Wow.
Nowadays, you have to work 174 hours, I think, to pay your rent on
It's
average.
insane.
It's insane. And it's I'm sorry, there's that whole thing about Jeff Bezos's wealth during the pandemic, and this was a statistic I remember from around the holidays last year, so December 2020-ish, give or take. I mean, forgive my memory, maybe a little off, but it was that if you took Jeff Bezos's wealth at the start of the pandemic and put a pin in it, and then let that run till that point around the holidays 2020, and just that increase in wealth by itself, just the increase part, was enough to give each of his 876,000 employees, each of them, a $105,000 bonus.
Yeah, but I mean I can't even wrap my head around how much money that is. That's insane.
Mhm.
Or even if not just all his employees, I think I saw a breakdown on a statistic of his increase in wealth during the pandemic. You could give, everybody in the United States a pretty sizable stimulus package of like, X, Y, and Z, enough to feed them for like a week or something crazy like that. So
Yeah, and
just
that's
one person's wealth.
yeah, there's a guy on Twitter, I think his name is Dan Price, and he's doing this. He cut his own pay and gives it to his people, and he has an amazingly successful company. And listen, I love capitalism. I love sustainable capitalism. That is not sustainable. It is
No.
greed. It is so dumb to not even pay your own people enough to use your own products.
Hmm.
Like, really? That just
Yeah.
seems highly unintelligent to me. Like,
Right.
don't you get the long-term ramifications of that choice? Really?
Right.
Okay.
And it to me, I think if I know you, I feel like you would probably feel the same way. To have that amount of power and wealth and to not share it with people that need it is crazy to
Yeah.
me. Like to be like, oh, I could help all of these people, and I'm just like gonna kind of sit on my mountain of gold, you
Oh
know?
my God. I mean,
It's just odd.
that's that's the piece I actually find unconscionable. And there's a couple levels of this and this is my opinion. Take it or leave it, you know.
Mhm,
Um, I find that level is abhorrent and I mean sinful, honestly.
mhm,
There's another level, which is if you look at these people who have become billionaires and while the middle class shrinks and people are still starving and struggling, and then those billionaires turn around and take on philanthropy. You're putting a crazy amount of power in the hands of people who are successful within a system designed to enhance that division of money, like
mhm,
to increase the gap between the haves and have nots. And now these people with all this money have even more power because they come in and they get to gift you and they get to decide how the help happens, or they
mhm,
choose the people who do. So they suddenly become like running the world in a whole other way. There's a great book about this called Winners Take All by Anand Girardis. I hope I said his name right. He's on Twitter. He's brilliant. Anand, and I can only spell the first part of his name, Gir. If you get that far, you'll find him. Forgive me for not being able to spell his name, but he's an intensely bright human being. And he has a wonderful TED talk that I saw before the 2016 election, and it's called A Letter to All Who Have Lost in This Era. I'll try to remember to tag that and put it on this, or, you know, see if I can get help putting that on the site. It, yeah, it ain't right.
yeah.
It just ain't right.
It's a weird place that we're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next question is from, let's see, let's do this one. N7 Diva it says, how do you balance work and life? I'm currently finding it hard to self-care because my job drains all of my energy. That's a good question.
Balancing work and life is a thing, man. What I'm seeing that, and I'm not there yet, let me tell you, because I'm realizing I'm in a crunch time right now myself. And the biggest issue I'm having is that when I go to change gears and to relax, I've forgotten what it is that relaxes me. I've forgotten it. Like the tool that I know that is a definite go-to is find some show on Netflix that's got half-hour episodes where I can just veg out. That will force me to sit down. And then by the time that's over, I'm like, good night. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that my dog needs walks. Those but they're all external boundaries.
Right.
So boundaries is the key. And I'll get back to you when I'm better at it. But I will say
Yeah.
that the people I really respect, like Lisa Carpenter, she's extraordinary. She's on Instagram and has a wonderful podcast called Full Frontal Living. And she's a boss with boundaries and her time and self-care. I will say it's a process. You know, those of us who didn't have it modeled for us, we're learning how to build it on our own, right? I liken it to Velcro. You know how Velcro has two sides, the hook side and then the soft side that sticks. Like our desire for that free time is the soft side. And then our habits that actually serve us are the hooks. And maybe, you know, you need a couple, like a few hundred to make that stuff stick. I've only built like 6, but I'm working on it. It comes
Yeah.
loose pretty easy,
It's
but I'm
hard.
getting better about it.
It's
I'm,
definitely hard.
yeah, you got to look like going outside to sit in the grass, building in those obligations. One of the keys for balance, I think, from what I've learned so far, is forcibly building in those obligations that prioritize you. Because every time you don't prioritize you and you bail on yourself, you're actually communicating to yourself that you don't matter
Yeah. That's
and you
good
can't do that
advice.
because you do.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good advice. I love this name. Bananakin Skywalker asks, what is something you wish you knew when you were a new mom? So, mom
Oh,
advice. Oh my gosh, there's so much. We could do a whole hour episode on just new parenting.
man, we could. It's stuff that I did know. There's both. There's stuff that I did know and stuff that I didn't know. The stuff that I did know that, you know, there's understanding it and then there's knowing it. And Jim Fortin, one of my mentors, says, you know, you can understand a broken leg or a broken bone, but you don't know it till you've had it. Then you know it, you know? So I understood you don't get the time back. I understood the days are long, but the years are short. Now I know it. My kid this morning, I went to hug him and I had to work to get my chin above his head.
Oh man.
Yeah. And that's like,
Oh,
That's a killer.
It is. It's so
That's a
it's like
killer.
so sad and so happy at the same
It's
time,
bittersweet.
right? Yeah.
I will tell you that, and this is gonna sound awful, you're going to have a million heartbreaks, and they're not broken bones and disappointments. They're, "Oh my god, that's gone now. They don't do that anymore." My kid used to wanna be hugged constantly, and I was like, "Oh my god," you know, and now he's grown through that. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god. Oh, now I'm asking for a hug," like
I
asking if
know.
you've got space for a hug, like, whoo, but it's meant to be, and when those things are happening, you're doing your job right. You're as my sister says, "You're not raising a child, you're raising an adult." So keep your eye to the principles and the habits and the things that you want for your kid. And the other thing that I really wish I'd remembered more is, you know your kid. Trust your gut. No
Yeah.
matter what anyone's telling you. Also listen if you're getting indicators like from teachers, he's AD, he's got some issues with this or that. They're experts in that area. Check it out. But at the bottom end of it, you know your kid.
It's good advice.
Mm.
It's good advice. Yeah, and it changes every week. There'll be
Oh
something
my
new to
God.
learn too. So like,
You're never gonna figure it out. It's not gonna
yeah.
be perfect.
Yep.
As my
You'll
sister actually has a great metric around this. She's like, look, did you do better than your parents did? Job done.
yeah, that's true. That's all we can hope for, right?
Yeah. I had a really low bar, so I'm golden.
Same here.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Commander Shepard N7 asks, what is your best advice for pursuing a goal or a dream day to day? Overall, best tip to keep on track at a micro level.
Read the book, The Slight Edge. I moved recently. It took me like I moved in slow motion. I moved my stuff like, a year ago, all my belongings, and it happened quite suddenly. So I can't find where my books are, but I'm going to find it and dig it out. I'm going to do it as one of my readings in here. Read this, or I don't read the whole book. I'll read like 10, 15, 20 minutes of it. Read The Slight Edge. For example, people who want to become voice actors, I suggest that they read out loud for 2 minutes a day, or 5 minutes total. Read like a minute and a half of fiction, a minute and a half of nonfiction, and then listen back. But do it every day because that's $1 in your bank. And if you stopped and you read for 4 hours on a Sunday, it's still $1 in the bank. It's the doing it over time. And the other thing is your barometer of success for yourself should always live inside you. No one gets to touch it. Your measurement tool, nobody touches that except very trusted people and yourself. People's opinions are irrelevant. It's your connection to that flow that's everything.
Wow.
Mhm.
It's very good advice. It's very good advice. We got you sent me this one right as we were starting,
Oh, yeah.
from Nick Dale. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. It's a longer question. It's a little heavy, but it's really, really good. So here we go. Uh, so this is from Nick. It says, I hope this is okay. I'm going through therapy at this time, and I'm finding my issues is my relationship with my mother. I'm 32 years old, and I still feel like I'm being controlled and have boundaries crossed, and my sexuality hidden from my wider family. I've tried for years to get a boundary respected. I feel I'm at the end of my rope with options. Any advice on cutting off the family or what else I could try before having to do so? Um, I really don't want to, but I have no other choice. So that's a tough question.
That's a tough one. And Nick, everyone here, I really appreciate your trust. Um, Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a person with my own share of road rash, and I'll share with you what I've learned along the way. I'll refer back to Lisa Carpenter, actually. She taught me the greatest lesson, which is boundaries are not something for other people. You set those for yourself. They're not behavioral guidelines for others. They're lines for you. So for me, that boundary looks like I'm not available for this conversation. If you want to talk about something else, great. I'm not available for you to debate my sexuality. I'm not available for you to talk smack about anything I do. If you start talking and I'm feeling bad, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to withdraw with love because that's my commitment to this relationship. And I'm going to go somewhere else. Expecting other people to be different is unfair to them. And that is really hard to hear and really disappointing and often very heartbreaking. People are who they are, and we can't change them. We can take responsibility for ourselves and take responsibility for choosing to be in situations and with people where we feel fulfilled and we feel content. And look, it's family. I get, you got to show, you can choose to show up at the holidays. And if you choose to show up, I have found it more beneficial to show up from a place of compassion. I have family members who are really different. Um, and I wouldn't choose to live in that communication style. I wouldn't choose to I wouldn't choose to be around it, but they're my family. And so I choose to show love and support, but that doesn't look like self-sacrifice. It looks like I set a specific amount of time I'm going to be there because I know how long I can endure this. And then I leave in love. I say, I'm all done people now. I got to go. I'll see you later. And in terms of owning your sexuality, I will share this. I was really bothered. I have a family member I deal with who has really massive boundary issues. So I'm in this conversation and I'm not going to minimize how hard and uncomfortable it can be sometimes to face that business down and to feel like the bad guy and all that. That is not fun. It helps when I remind myself, like, I'm not the bad guy. I have a right to feel how I feel. I have a right to take care of myself and not from a place of, I have a right. Because when you're going at it from there, you don't believe it.
Hmm.
When you're mad, people can only get you where you're already judging yourself. Like, people can't get me about my hair or my choice of clothes because I don't care. I don't judge myself about that. There are places where I can be gotten. And every time somebody gets me and I feel gotten, I think, okay, thank you for shining a flashlight on where apparently I'm still judging myself and I haven't
That's a good
accepted
point.
myself. So the deeper and stronger and harder you can stand for yourself and accept yourself, not out of anger, but out of self-love. Another great book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. Get it? Do the exercises. You will have more space for other people to have behavior that is so contrary to what you need because you're already feeding yourself.
That's great.
Mm.
That's really great. And hopefully things work out for you, Nick. That's a hard situation to be in. And
And it's a process too, Nick. I mean, my mom was I'll tell, well, she'll come up a lot, I think, in this room. She was a very, very you talk about somebody who never saw me. She saw what she needed to see. She saw what she wanted to see. And I was so angry about it for so many years. And now when I look at it, I go, oh my God, what a beautiful partnership we had. What a beautiful path we had. I would not have the strength, the resilience, and the understanding and the compassion and empathy I do without having had her as a mom. She gave me an iron core, a significant number of scars, if you will, but they're life.
yeah,
She lifed the heck out of that thing,
there you go.
until
She
she got,
taught you one way or another, right?
she did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was total reverse
Sometimes
teaching. Like I was like, I'm
sometimes we
never going to be like this.
yeah.
But what I see on the other side is the choice to take it as foundational and fuel and depth and strength. It is a
Yeah.
gift.
Yeah, very much so. Like quick anecdote. My dad is a wonderful guy, but he's an alcoholic and
Mm,
had drug issues growing up and things like that. But he's still a great guy. He just had issues, right?
yeah.
And it did exactly that. It taught me exactly what not to do with my adulthood because I
Mhm,
watched it all growing up. I watched all the trials and tribulations and hardships that someone goes through when they make those decisions.
mm,
So for me, it was a very clear-cut decision to not do the same things as my parents.
yeah.
And I think we all learn one way or another by example, which is
We
something we talked
do.
about earlier.
We do. And I think it's a choice to sit in that space where we feel victimized or to choose to say, you know what? I get one of whatever day this is and whatever year this is and what time it is. Okay, that's gone. That's gone. That's gone. Where am I going to spend it? What am I going to
Mhm.
pay attention to? Because what you focus on grows, right? What are you going to feed with your attention? And there's move your attention somewhere else, move it somewhere else.
Yeah, very good. The last question, I don't know if we have who it's from, but it is a question about upcoming stuff
Hmm.
with Discord and with Patreon. It says, what time and days will the Zoom meets be? And have you thought about doing a Mass Effect playthrough? So this is a question.
If I do, this is not a space for a lot of my work stuff. This is a space for you guys, for life and things like that. And so at some point, maybe I'll do it. Mark and I were actually talking about doing some kind of Mass Effect playthrough sort of a thing. So if that's coming, you'll hear it on my Twitter or my Instagram, and that would be super fun. I would love that. And what's coming on here, we're going to go each month. We'll have slightly different times for our the group, the big group chat, the group Zoom, the webinar, and those will be announced a couple weeks ahead of time. And for those of you who can't make it in the appointed time, it will be recorded and posted through the member site. So
Great. Great. Well,
mhm.
thank you so much, Jen. This
Oh,
was great. And we have many more questions, but we'll store them all and
yeah,
then maybe come back to them, and we'll just kind of, maybe keep this going every once in a while or something, because it was fun to get to know you guys and to answer these. So
it was
it was
really
very
fun. And
cool.
thank you for being here. You'll start to hear over time some of these themes and ideas repeat, and they're the tent poles, they're the benchmarks, or my little guides along the path, because the same stuff comes up over and over, just at different levels of it. That's been my experience. And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that you're here. Thanks for being here early, and we're kind of figuring out how we do all this. And Ash, thank you
Oh
so
yeah,
much. And
absolutely. It was
Gwen,
super
thank you
fun.
wherever you are. So
Yeah.
thank you guys.
All right.
All
Thank you
right.
guys.
See you in the rooms.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.